August 23rd, 1978. This world was introduced to a man that we didn't know at the time would turn out to be as legendary as he turned out to be. That man was Kobe Bryant. Today, it's Monday, August 24th, has so been called Kobe Bryant Day. 8 months ago, we lost a legend in this world in Calabasas, California, in a helicopter crash. 8 months later, we still feel the impact of his life in the NBA and around the world. We hate to start our show on such a down note, but we felt it was only fitting because 8 months ago, for the first time, we gathered together for the Casual Sports Podcast, which was the first one released to YouTube. So it's only fitting that how we started is how we open this one. So we are going to take a brief moment of silence for Kobe Bryant. All right. Now let's get on to the show. We're going to try and keep the tempo up. I know I just kind of brought everybody down. But hello, everybody. I'm Alec Caberno. Welcome into the Casual Sports Podcast. Joined with me, as always,
is Matt Morrison
and Mike Wolfgang.
We are so happy to be back. Obviously, we wish today could be a little bit different. We wish we would be celebrating his birthday yesterday, but we cannot. Welcome back to the Casual Sports Podcast. Before we get into it, make sure to check us out on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We have stuff coming out all the time now. We're finally back into the swing of things. And this week and next week, your host of the show is going to be Matt Morrison. So, Matt, without any further ado, take it away.
All right, we're going to start out with NHL. We got playoffs going on. We got, Bruins versus Lightning, Game 1. Bruins take the game 3-2. You got Charlie Goyle, Brad Marchand, and Dave Pastrnak with the goals in their winning effort. And then Victor Hedman scored both goals for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Guys, did you get the chance to watch this game? Or
I did not get the chance to watch the game, so no, I haven't been able to check it out. I've been pretty much rocking on the NBA at the moment. There's been tons of stuff. I mean, there's series all the time. I get home from work later at night, so I only get a chance to watch 1 or 2 games. I'm throwing on basketball every time, so that's just what I do. So NHL, Bruins, Lightning, this is obviously a pretty big series here. What are the two teams ranking? I know...
the Bruins are number 1 seed, I believe.
Okay, what are the Lightning?
I'm pretty sure they're 2 or 3.
I thought they were the 2 or 3.
They're one of the top teams,
So this is basically, for those of you, you just watching the playoffs, this is basically Stanley Cup level play. I mean, this is like your championship level. This is what we're playing at with this game. This means everything. Unfortunately, Tampa Bay beat the Columbus Blue Jackets, which they didn't do last year. We talked about it on the show last week. Yeah. If you guys were able to sit through that 2.5 hour show to make it to the end.
Mike, have you been watching the playoffs at all?
Over this past weekend, I have not, but I have been following.
I've been. He said he was all NBA. Well, I've been all NHL. I mean, every day we've been watching. I made my dad watch the Bruins.
I mean, I've been all baseball so far, but
but I've been watching baseball too.
Yeah, during hockey, I watched most of the playing games. Yeah, unfortunately, the Penguins didn't make it.
Yeah, unfortunately.
That's old news at this point. Yeah. They got eliminated before the playoffs even started.
And as we know right now, I was getting the Blackhawks all hyped up last week during our first 2.5 hour show. In the end, they did not. They put a very fierce Game 5 in, but they just couldn't come out with the win. And that's just the way it is sometimes. And the Golden Knights, who beat them, just shut out the Vancouver Canucks 5-0. 5-0 in Game 1. Robin Lehner had 26 saves in the win. See, that tells you that the Canucks didn't have a lot of shot on goals.
Yeah, that's a pretty sloppy performance on that offense there. Yeah. But just before we get into that, I just have to say, I think it might be time for you to stop endorsing a team. It seems like you're just like, hey, let's go this team. They lose. Yeah. So why don't you endorse somebody? Let's just endorse somebody you don't like and they'll lose.
Well, I've been cheering for. I've started watching the Dallas Stars more, and they won their first game. They won 5-3 in Game 1 against Colorado Avalanche, and Game 2 is actually tonight at 9:45. And then the Islanders and Flyers have yet to play Game 1 tonight at 7. That should be a very intense series. The Islanders, of course, getting past the 2018 Stanley Cup champions. The Washington Capitals and the Flyers defeated the Montreal Canadiens. This will be a very back and forth series. I could probably see this going 7 games, and also with the Dallas Colorado series, I see it going maybe 5.
I think it'll be a deep one.
Yeah.
All right, so I got a question for you guys. Yeah. We're getting pretty deep here into the NHL playoffs.
Yeah.
We're now in the second round. Who are your ongoing favorites to take home the cup this year? I mean, we've seen a lot of good performances by a lot of different teams.
Yes.
We saw, if you just go with the Lightning, the performances against Columbus, how they were able to pull out a victory in the 5 overtime game.
Yeah.
And Bruins have put on good performances. The Golden Knights, we all know, is a very good, solid team. They did very well against. They did very well against Chicago. So, who are your guys' ongoing favorites right now?
Well, as of right now, I'm kind of going. I like the Dallas, and I like I like Colorado. I'm kind of going like the old wherever former Penguin is on a team. I kind of go for that. Alisiak is playing for Dallas right now. He played for the Penguins for some years, so I like to see the former Penguins get some wins. So.
I'm liking Dallas. I mean, they're after that Game 1 victory, they're riding momentum. We'll see if they continue that in Game 2.
They're a good team. I also got the experience to actually go and see the Dallas Stars play, and they put up a pretty competitive game against my Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting to the second round now, so you're starting to see
You're starting to see the teams that are pretty good come through. The Golden Knights. Marc-Andre Fleury on their team. Not really the starting goal anymore with Robin Lehner there, who came over from the Islanders from last year. But he still gets some games in, and he still does great. So.
Right. All right. My favorite's probably got to be the Golden Knights, though. I mean, if you just look at how they've done in their very short lifespan in the NHL. What was it? First or second season they go out and win the Stanley Cup championship?
Actually, they didn't win it.
No,
they didn't win it. They were
right.
there.
The first year they lost
to the Bruins, right?
No, Capitals, right?
Oh, it was the Capitals. Yeah,
that's what it was. Yes.
And but this team, they're very fast. They're very strong. Like I said on the last show, this Golden Knights team is going to be very hard to stop. Okay, it's going to take a great amount of force to stop this Golden Knights.
I mean, you just put out the stat. They won 5-0.
Yeah.
And the other team only had 20. I mean, their goalie only had 26 saves.
Yeah. So it wasn't really.
So the fact that how many goalies would love that if their defense just I only have to block 26 shots.
That 5 overtime game was 85 saves.
Yeah, 85 saves. Yeah. That's good performance. I mean, if you were to break that down by period, 3 periods, 26. So it's around 12. No, 9 saves a period.
Yeah,
I think a lot of goalies in.
That's pretty good keeping the puck the other end.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's very good by the Vegas offense just to keep the zone, keep the possession, really.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much we all got on hockey. We'll keep you updated on that as this...
Who do we got playing tonight?
Tonight we got the Flyers on at 7, and then Colorado versus Dallas is on as well. I think there's another game, but no, there isn't. It's just those 2 games.
I'll make sure I tune in that Dallas game and see if they can keep that up after that.
I'll definitely tune in. Especially because I don't have any school tomorrow.
I mean, that's a good reason.
Yeah, but we're going to move on now. We're going to go on to the MLB now. Mike, I know you got some stuff. I have some stuff as well. I'll go ahead and start off.
Go ahead.
The Dodgers, best record right now, 22-8. They honored Kobe Bryant wearing his jerseys during pregame yesterday, as it was his 42nd birthday, I believe. He would have turned 42 yesterday.
Correct.
And I'm also repping Kobe Bryant today. I got a free piece of pizza. I walked in. It was like, you're your first person I saw wearing a Kobe Bryant shirt. You get a free piece of pizza.
All right, so what are we thinking in the Major League Baseball right now? There's stuff going on, but there's not a lot of big things going on. I know, Mike, you got some things. Obviously, Padres are putting on a hitting performance. We still have the Indians bullpen showing up.
Yeah.
They just had rookie debut that we're going to talk about here in a second. I mean, what are we thinking so far that we've gotten this far into the MLB season, Mike?
I mean, obviously you got the big boys. You got the Dodgers. You got Oakland's a
Oakland,
good team this year. They're
29.
I think that's probably
second best record. I really like what I watched a couple of those games this year. Oakland is here to play. I know they've never. I don't think they've ever. For the last World Series was that 1989? I think.
I think it's been a while.
That Earthquake World Series. I think
it might have been the one you covered and taking it back with Matt.
Yeah. Right.
But just before we go any further, I think it is a surprise Oakland has done so well, considering I know at least when we did our Keeping It Casual show, Matt and I, we didn't predict Oakland A's to do much of anything.
No.
And then I remember last year when we were still back in Rookie Radio Studios, we had all talked about what we thought certain teams were going to do. And when we talked about that certain division, I don't think any of us picked the Oakland A's to do much of anything this season.
I mean, no, most of us, even throughout all the cheating scandal, most of us had the Astros running away with that. But nobody thought they would get off to the start that they got. I mean, Altuve is pretty much nothing.
I think we even mentioned it last week very briefly because I think we were trying to speed through some things at the end. I think the Oakland Athletics were, 14-2 in the month of August?
Yeah, they were pretty hot. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
they were very hot to start this month.
Right now they're 20-9 and they're 4.5 games over the second place Astros. So I mean that's turned into a decent race. And then you got the Twins and Indians in the Central. It's a tight race. That's probably one of the tightest.
The Indians are a game and a half after they just
yeah.
lost to Detroit yesterday again.
So I mean, we started talking about the Padres a little bit. Did you guys hear much about that Grand Slam controversy last
night? Oh my God! Yeah, you want me to talk about this because this pissed me off.
I mean, let me just explain.
All right, yeah, explain it to the people.
I mean, in the later innings I think it was Monday last week, they were playing the Rangers. And Tatis was up and bases loaded. It was right. Yeah, it was a grand
bases
slam.
Loaded.
3-0 count, and he just decides to swing away, and he puts it over the right center field fence. Now, there's an unwritten rule in baseball that batters should take a pitch on a 3-0 count. I mean, that's not like a rule, but that's just what people do.
Right.
So put one over the fence, and for whatever reason, there's controversy surrounding that. So let me see what you got.
All right. So first things first, we're talking about swinging on a 3-0 count. They really wouldn't have been complaining if he swings on a 3-0 count and he hits into a double play and saves that pitcher's ERA. But no, because he hits it over the fence, everybody gets pissed off. It's like, how dare you go swing? But if he hits a ground ball, gets a double play to save that inning for that team, you'll be like, oh man, nobody would be talking about it. It wouldn't have made a single headline.
Right.
Not one. Unwritten rules of baseball? No. I know there's a lot of them. They're all BS. They're baloney. They only ever get called when someone's feelings get hurt. This is baseball.
Well,
this is a grown man sport. If you're going to go out there and cry about when you get destroyed in the game because you suck at the game that you're getting paid millions to play, if you're going to go out there and complain when somebody hits on you, or if you're a pitcher and you're going to complain, how dare he swing, don't put the ball right down the middle. Yeah. If you pitch a ball down the middle to anyone of any power hitter in Major League Baseball, he's taking you 400 feet dead center every single time.
Well, the only thing about that is you got a rising star like Tatis coming up like that, and just because 3-0 you decide to throw him just down the middle. That's one of the problems with baseball is these unwritten rules. You want offense. The guy gave you offense in the late innings, hit a grand slam.
Right.
And there's arguments around that. That's one of the problems with baseball.
But you know what happened? I think it was last night or the night before, another player on the Padres was in a 3-1 count with the bases loaded, and I think the 7th inning, I think they were up 7-1 against the team. He hit a grand slam. You know how many headlines that made? 1 or 2. 1 or 2. Because he swung on a 3-1 instead of 3-0. It was only because the other team made such a hissy fit about Tatis Jr. taking him yard. And ruining that pitcher's ERA, because the pitcher put himself in the situation of getting on bases loaded in the first place. If you don't want someone hitting a grand slam on you, don't load the bases.
And don't throw a meatball down the plate.
Right.
I mean, the thing about that is, I really don't necessarily care about what the count is, because hitting in baseball is so hard to begin with. So I don't care what the count is. If there's one right down the plate, you got to swing.
Right. Yeah. And if you don't want somebody swinging in a 3-0 count, don't throw 3 balls.
Yeah, anybody would swing at 3-0 if it's right down.
If you get something that you think,
especially if it's under like 90 miles per hour, you're gonna hit that ball.
If you're throwing a ball down Main Street, you're expecting that thing to get taken yard every single time.
Especially against a guy like Tatis.
Anybody would do it.
Right, and if we're looking statistically at this, Tatis Jr.'s I think, the number one hitter in baseball at the moment. You're telling me, like, we would be saying, we'd be praising a guy like Mike Trout if he goes and hits 1 yard, like this.
I mean, and that was like I think that was the first game of 5 straight games that had a grand slam.
I think it was the second one.
Was it the second one?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah, because I know this game was either Monday or Tuesday of last week, so we didn't get to talk about it last week. But hitting that many grand slams in 4 or 5 straight games, that's pretty unheard of.
Right. I believe it actually is unheard of. I believe they set a record for most consecutive games with the grand slam.
Yeah. So let's cool down here. Let's talk about something that's not controversial.
Yeah.
So
we don't want another Rob Manfred situation.
Brewers, though,
we briefly mentioned Tristan McKenzie making his debut for the Indians.
Oh yes.
So here's a stat line: 10 strikeouts of Tiger hitters, and picked up his first win as career win in his first start as the Indians rallied for a 6-1 victory against the Tigers.
Was it like 1 run he allowed or something like that?
Yeah, it was
one run and 2
home
hits.
Run.
Then he struck out 2 batters after that.
Yeah.
But team president Chris Antonetti told reporters yesterday that McKenzie will remain with the club for at least one more start rather than returning to Lake County to train. So he's going to be around for at least another start. We know that. We'll see how it does now.
And you know
especially with the absences of Mike Clevenger and Zach Plesac with the bull crap.
Fun fact, or actually not fun fact, was when I was working for the Scrappers in 2016, my first year, that's when McKenzie was with the Scrappers his first year. So he used on his off days, he used to walk around the concourse and just talk to the employees.
Yeah.
So I got a chance to talk to him, and a couple of my other friends there got to talk to him. My sister actually had his number, and I told her to text him after the game. And she's like, "No, I don't want to do that." I was like, "If I had a major league player's number, I'd be texting him right now." But she wasn't.
Wait, so you're saying we have a line of connection to Tristan McKenzie?
Yes.
And all right, so what I'm hearing is we need to get him on the show at some point.
You went to the Rubber Ducks, right?
Yeah.
Well, I was there. He was there, a year or two ago. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, he was supposed to be there last year, but
so I was there with my sister,
and then he got called up.
We were sitting behind their dugout. He was walking to the dugout after the game, and she either waved at him or DM'd him after the game, and he responded to her. So from
what I've heard, he's a very good guy. And a lot of people are talking to him.
Yeah,
he is a good guy.
He's kind of rocking arm every pitch. Yes, 95 miles.
He's a lot taller than I thought he was. I've only ever seen pictures, and during the broadcast, I had turned it on. Just I had to check him out for myself, and I was like, oh my god, he kind of looks like who was the closer for the Indians? Miller. Andrew Miller. He's got a very similar body frame with that guy, but kind of skinnier too.
I was also thinking Randy Johnson.
Yeah, that's a good call.
I was thinking before they said it on the Indians broadcast, but before they said it, I was thinking he kind of reminded me a little bit of Dwight Gooden for the Mets back then.
Yeah, Dwight Gooden
came out lengthy and tall, but he can reach back and throw it. So that's another comparison. That's all we got for the Indians.
Yeah, I really liked Tristan McKenzie's whole debut. Though, it was nice to see. And before we move too far past that, Shane Bieber made his debut with the Indians last year.
Yeah.
Had the All-Star game appearance, won the All-Star MVP. Now, second year in a row, Indians bring up a pitcher who has phenomenal stats.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's exciting to be an Indians fan right now.
They just always have good pitchers.
Right.
They're currently 7th best record in the MLB right now, 17-11. They took the L yesterday against Detroit.
But
they're powering hard, man.
But they're only
bats are starting to come again.
Finally.
Franmil Reyes, dear God, I'm so glad we have
Cesar Hernandez got his first home run.
Yeah.
Got him on the board.
Everybody's whining about losing Jason Kipnis. Well, I'm glad we have Cesar Hernandez.
That is for sure.
He's hitting way better than Jason Kipnis. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Jason Kipnis. He's a fan favorite. But in the end, it's all about business, and it's about who gets you hits and gets you runs.
We have to make sure Reyes is going to be a long-term guy. He's having a hot part of the season, but we still have to wait and see before we start saying, this guy's way better than Jason Kipnis. Because Jason Kipnis was with the team for a while and performed for a while, too.
Cesar Hernandez.
Hernandez, yeah.
It's all right.
But you mentioned that they're in 7th place, 7th best record in MLB. They're currently 1.5 games back in the Central Division to the Twins, and they play this week.
Yes.
So first place in the AL Central is up for grabs as we're speaking.
It's always a tight race. Going back to last year, two good teams. It was a tight race last year. It looks to be another tight race down. It's going to be down to the wire again this year.
Right, and as long as neither one of these teams go cold, these are going to be the two teams representing the AL Central once we make it to the playoffs.
And another team we kind of degraded back on one of our old shows, the Toronto Blue Jays right now are currently 500, 13-13, and we totally said that they weren't going to be very good. They got, they have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. right now.
Vladdy Jr.
Oh yeah,
Gotta love him.
Bo Bichette's putting on a show.
Bo
too.
Bichette is doing very good. Yeah.
I mean, they're definitely a team of the future. They got a lot of young. Yeah.
Yeah, they got a lot of upside, a lot of promise right there. A lot of young guys,
Yeah.
So you really have to wait for them to develop at the moment because they're just seeing pitchers that have been throwing for 13 years, throwing 98, 99 mile an hour pitches. A lot of those guys just got called up from the minors.
Yeah.
Two, 3 years ago at the most, really. And when you're back in those minors, you're really only seeing guys. You get maybe one pitcher that's throwing in the 90s that you may see once or twice a season. Most of those guys are throwing mid 80s. And that's a good pitcher for minor league baseball is if he can hit like 85 consistently.
Oh, right.
A lot of those things are still only coming in 82, 78 miles an hour. So, we really have to wait for these younger guys to catch up to the speed of the game. We always say this in the transition going from college football to professional football. Just the difference in the speed of the game. And that's very true when it comes to Major League Baseball. Just how fast everything is working.
Right. Go back to the Indians, though.
Yeah.
What was this, the first time in 20-something games the Tigers beat them?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
The Tigers finally pulled off a win against the Indians.
Right.
Yeah.
They ended up winning 2 of the 3 in one weekend. That was a long streak that they had to end.
Yes.
Very similar to the one the Red Sox are having against the Yankees. Red Sox have, I think...
Red Sox losing everybody these days.
Right.
Yeah,
I think the Red Sox
are,
have only won 2 of the past 15 or 16 against the Yankees now.
Yeah, they
So,
currently are tied for the worst record in the league, which is now with the Pirates anymore, Mike. They're the 3rd worst team.
Pirates only have
Woo!
7 wins,
Yeah. Boston and LA are tied for the worst. They're 9 wins and 20 losses. So, come on, you got Mike Trout. Come on, let's get something together.
Well, speaking of the Pirates, the Brewers, they hosted the Brewers over the weekend. The Brewers' mini struggle continues. They got swept by the Pirates in a 3-game weekend series. I mean, that's pretty hard to do to get swept by the Pirates these days.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, hold on. Who'd you say got swept by the
The
Pirates?
Milwaukee Brewers.
What is their record right now?
Pittsburgh?
No, Brewers.
Brewers?
Do you have that up, Mike?
Milwaukee is currently 11-15.
11
Okay.
So
That's
they
not
lost,
that bad.
they lost-
Still, yeah, Christian Yelich.
They're currently on a 4-game losing streak, so they
Oh,
were
wow.
11. They were 500, and they lost a game to the Twins, and they lost the 3 straight to the Pirates, which, like I said, it's hard to get swept by the Pirates.
So what we're seeing here is the Milwaukee Brewers just need to be thrown out of baseball
And-
altogether. Who loses 3 straight to the Pirates?
I like how Frank Tatis Jr. I'm gonna go back to the
Padres.
for a second.
Yeah.
But you also gotta keep in mind Manny Machado. He's doing pretty good. He had one of those grand slams, didn't he? Didn't he get one?
He had one.
Yeah,
Eric
I think
Hosmer
he
had
had
one.
one.
Eric Hosmer had one, I know that. Tatis had
Eric
the first one.
Hosmer, a former Kansas City Royal, getting it done. He's an older guy too. He's a vet.
Right.
On that
So
team,
most of their game is coming from Tatis Jr., but I think Tatis Jr. is a compliment to these other guys too, like Machado and Eric Hosmer.
Definitely, because the pitchers are so focused on how am I going to beat Tatis Jr., and then they can't. So, it really gets to the mindset of a pitcher of he's putting all this effort into trying to take down one guy, and it sometimes can mess with their mentality when they go to the plate against somebody else. And that just opens the opportunity for one of those other hitters to capitalize on a mistake of the pitcher who's overthinking the game.
Yes. Keeping on the Padres note, they're actually on a 7-game winning streak. They swept the Astros this weekend. They took a 4-game series from the Rangers. So things are pretty good for San Diego right now. I mean, they've been struggling for a long time. I don't know the last time they were good. So they got good rising young
What's
star in
their record
Tatis.
right now? 18-12, I believe. I think
Let me check on that.
they're second against
18-12, behind the Dodgers.
Yeah, second.
That's gonna be hard to chase them down, but
Yeah.
I mean, if they keep on this hot streak they're on, I mean, anything's possible in baseball.
Yes, anything is possible.
What else we got in baseball here?
I think we're running out of baseball. But we did get a lot in about baseball. I think it's going to be a very interesting year, and I think it's going to be a very good
halfway through.
postseason. It's going to be a very good postseason, I think, especially with that third wild card now, right?
Yeah, they added a wild card game, so they completely changed the format of the playoffs this season.
So the team in third place potentially has a shot to get in. The teams in first and second are they're in, right?
Yeah, first
Pretty
and second
much,
place
yeah.
are in, and then
Right
they
now,
got the extra
Indians
wild
are
card
in,
spot.
so-
But that division that includes the Padres, that's a very strong division
Yeah.
at the moment. That's the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Rockies, I believe,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that division, I will probably get all three of the 4 teams in.
So, Mike, don't give up hope on your Pirates just yet.
Give up hope.
Matt,
It's,
come on.
it's
They,
done.
they
It's-
could
it's
go
over.
on a little
No.
winning streak.
The,
Matt,
the only,
stop.
the only thing in their defense for this horrid start they got off to,
What do you think about their new manager? Do you think he has hope?
I like him. I mean, he's never been a manager before. I mean, there's a lot of criticism
I
of
think
him for
that's-
handling the bullpen, but I mean, he's
Yeah.
never been a manager before. I'm not going to give
Yeah.
up hope because they're still a young team.
Yes,
I mean, they have the only thing in their defense this year for being so bad is
the young team and the young manager.
and their top 4 starters are out.
Yeah,
I mean, you got Jameson tying up. He's probably their ace. Joe Musgrove was pitching a little bit, but then
Yeah.
he got hurt at the beginning of the year.
yeah. Musgroves are.
Chris Archer's out.
Yeah,
The guy that brought up last year, Mitch Keller, he was one of the top pitching prospects. He's out. So, I mean, they've been using an opener for pretty much every game this season. So,
main keys here.
stay healthy.
Get the young team to play better.
Stay healthy. Get the bullpen figured out. I mean,
Yeah.
the offense started off really bad, but they've picked it up against this weekend series against the
Yeah.
Brewers.
The
So.
good thing is that they're young and they got a little while to figure this stuff
Yeah,
out.
I mean, they're right now they're pretty much in the mode of just bringing up guys and seeing who's going to be on the team for next year, which
Yeah.
they've got to do. I mean, this year's a wash because of all the injuries they've had and a slow start. So we'll see what
But
happens.
when is it enough to finally be there? Because, we keep saying, oh, well, they got young guys that need to develop, and then they have a terrible season. You're like, all right, well, maybe it'll turn around next season. Then they don't, and then they don't do it again, and they keep not making it.
I think
When do we finally see a team like the Pirates just say, we're done, we have to restart, we have to completely blow up the team?
I think if they came out right now and said we're going to tear it all down, I would be okay with it. That's what you have to do right
Yeah.
now because I mean you've seen teams like I'm looking at now like the Phillies were bad,
Yeah.
the Braves were bad,
the
Look at-
Padres.
the Padres
The
were
The
bad.
Padres
bad.
were abysmal.
Yeah.
I mean you have to go to a low point before you build up. I mean,
Toronto is kind of still in that process right
Cleveland,
now.
the Astros.
Cleveland,
We
Cleveland,
could talk
yes.
The Cubs
about
were
we could talk
awful.
about World Series teams. I mean, look at the Red Sox just a few years ago were at the top of the top, and now they're at the bottom.
Cleveland.
Cleveland was at the bottom during the Sizemore era when we got rid of him.
Yeah, 2013. That was the first year we made the wild card in like how many years?
They brought in Terry Francona, and I don't think
Yeah.
what is it? He hasn't had a losing season yet or something.
No.
Not losing
I don't know if he's ever had, has he?
I don't
Going
know.
back to the
Oh
Red
God,
Sox.
I don't remember what the one. Oh, I remember what it was. Francona has a better record since he's been with the Indians
Yeah, that
than
time
than
frame.
any other team. So the Indians have the best overall record
Yeah.
in his tenure.
in his tenure than every other team in that time period.
But like I said, I mean, going back to the Pirates, I mean, like I said, the last couple of years, their biggest problem is staying healthy. I mean, they're losing key guys in key roles. I mean, like I said, their top 4 starters are out. But we'll see how it goes under this new management staff, which I'm giving them a chance because anything's better than what they had. But if they just came out right now and said that we're just going to tear it all down and restart, that's what they have to do. I mean, like I said, you've seen the teams like the Cubs do it, and look what happened then. They won a World Series.
Right, and a team
Yeah.
that had 107-year World Series championship
Series,
drought,
Yeah.
which made the Indians have the longest one. Now it was the battle of the 2 oldest streaks in baseball. One had to end, and it just
1948.
had to be the Indians.
1948. That's
So,
the
yeah.
last time we won it.
We'll see how that goes now. I mean, you got teams like the Orioles right now are doing it. The Marlins, even
Yeah.
though the Marlins started off good, I
The
mean, they're still in
Orioles-
rebuilding mode. I
The
mean,
Orioles, they were in playoffs at 2016. Baltimore
Yeah.
Orioles were in the playoffs.
yeah, I mean,
So-
see how quickly things can turn.
I mean-
And also Toronto was in the playoffs in
Right.
2016.
I mean, probably the Pirates' biggest issue is the owner, which I know you love to go off on that
Yeah.
one. Because I don't think your owner wants to spend the money to rebuild. He's just gonna
Well, like I said,
I get money.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they have good prospects coming up, but they're not like one of the teams in the majors with the top farm system.
Right.
So I mean, they like I said, they have a couple good guys coming up, but you can't just rely on bringing guys up. You have to sign significant players in Major League Baseball to be with those young guys and to compete, which they haven't done.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest issues that you see it like the opposite way with a team like the Indians, who has arguably one of the best farm systems in baseball, just due to the fact that their AA and AAA teams are so they've established. They've been in these cities forever, and the whole system is just in place. It's all been in place for so long that it's just easy to put a prospect there, and in 2 to 3 years he's going to be playing in the majors. The Pirates don't have that established base, I don't think.
I mean, like I said,
As much as a team like the Indians
Right.
or the Yankees.
they have good prospects and good guys coming out of the draft, but they just don't develop them as well as teams like the Indians do.
Right.
I mean, that's what you got to do when you're a small market team. You see with the A's, like they bring up guys like they're so good right now. We don't even know half the guys on the roster.
Right.
No.
I mean,
but it's all just through farm guys that they've been home growing, and that's what a lot of small, like you said, a lot of small market teams have to do. You build your guy from the ground up, and then you hope you can keep him on a smaller contract for 4 to 6 years, and then you let him go out to the team like the Yankees.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the Pirates have good guys coming up. We'll see if they bring them up to the end of the year or maybe after the trade deadline. They have Brian Hayes, one of the top third base prospects in baseball. So we'll see how that is. They definitely need somebody at third base.
Right.
They need somebody everywhere, but we'll see how things go. And
they need a guy at third, second, first, short, pitching. They probably need a catcher out there. They probably need a few outfielders.
I know.
Am I forgetting any positions? I think they need somebody to hit the ball at the DH position.
They do. They need to hit the ball anywhere or anybody to hit the ball. They definitely need some power, but
any free agents listening, go to Pittsburgh. We might have an interesting story to talk about for them.
I mean, like I said, the only good thing they have going is their starting pitching, which right now doesn't look like they're all injured. But I mean,
right?
It's a hitter's ballpark. If you want to go there and you hit the ball all over the place, it's easy to hit.
Yeah, the opponents love that ballpark. I mean, they're just hitting dingers all the time.
There's plenty of room, so I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I like what they're doing now. Just bringing up guys and plugging them in different places and see who's going to be there for next year, who wants to be there for next year.
You were just talking about teams that were like going through the process of rebuilding. Tampa Bay Rays team has, I think they actually started to come on top of their playing good years.
They're the Yankees right now.
They're first in their division. They're 19-10. They have second baseman Yanni Diaz playing for the Indians. Doing pretty good. I think that's how he's batting a little over 400 right now.
Oh, that's a good start to the season.
Exactly.
He had a home run in the wild card game last year.
Yeah. He's batting. Let's see. He's batting 315 right now. His on base percentage is 442, and that's where you really gotta look up. All these on base percentages are half the team is like 300 on base percentage. And that's, you gotta get people on base to win games. And, that's what Tampa Bay is doing right now. And they made it kind of far in the playoffs last year, didn't they? They lost to Houston, right?
They did in the division series.
In the division series.
I think it was a 5-game series, yeah.
Yeah.
Every time I look at the Rays, I just think about when the Pirates just gave away Glasnow, Meadows, and Shane Baz. That's one of the worst trades ever.
Yeah. I think, who's that one guy?
For
G-Man Choi is also on that team.
Right.
He can hit the ball.
But the Rays are another example of that. I mean, you never hear significant guys going down to Tampa. I mean, that's another team that has to depend on the farm system that has to develop those guys well, or they're not gonna hang around.
No.
Right.
We're in teams like the Indians, and the Rays, and I'd even say the Phillies. They haven't really acquired anybody except Bryce Harper. That's like the first one since like Cliff Lee or whatever.
Right. And that was an older Cliff Lee when the Indians acquired him too. So he was well out of his prime once the Indians got him.
Yeah. Or got rid of him. Yeah. So the teams like this and the A's too. There's that whole movie Moneyball about how the A's had to
basically find a way to cheat the system into giving them some sort of advantage over a team like the Yankees, and that made $100 million more a year.
Yeah, and they had that 20-game winning season, which was the most until
it was 2021. The Indians put it at 22.
Yeah, and so it's a very difficult process to do that, but that's.
But you have to do it. You have to do it. I mean, it's in any sport. I mean, you're seeing. I'm looking at the Indians division right now. I mean, the White Sox have been bad for a while.
Yeah, and they're finally coming around. Well, they got Tim Anderson, who's the other guy on their team.
I think everyone but Kansas in the AL Central has done really well this season. They've all had moments during the regular season.
And there's Kansas, another team that's going through a rebuild. They won the World Series in 2015.
Yeah, they're not too far off from that.
Guys. Alex Gordon, I think, is maybe one of the few that is still on that team, but they did have Eric Hosmer. They had, forget the outfielder's name. Mike Moustakas now is...
Lorenzo Cain with the Brewers.
Yeah, Lorenzo Cain also left.
But it pays off with them. I mean, they all came up at the same time. You have to bring your core that you're banking on being the bulk of your team coming up through the minors. You have to bring those guys up and mold them to being into that core.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to.
And that's what the Indians have done.
Right.
With Ramirez and then Lindor, and you know Michael Brantley before he left.
So
in that outfield core.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like I said,
Good ring. So.
what with Brantley?
Yeah.
I like Michael Brantley.
He was great. I mean,
He was
Cleveland.
great.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was great. He was hurt a lot of years, and then he finally gave him a couple good seasons. I think that was enough to punch his ticket to Houston. I think he kind of used.
I was with the Scrappers that year he made that rehab start
Yeah.
a couple years ago. But yeah, I mean, going back to like the bad teams in baseball or any sport, you have to go down before you go up. I mean, it's hard to do. It's hard to.
It's gonna
stay
get
for that
worse
long.
before it gets better.
But when you're sticking,
I don't know
for
how
that
it can
long-
get much worse for a team like the Pirates, though.
Oh, yeah.
You've been at the very bottom of the barrel,
Yeah.
just trying to get by for a while now. Well, when do they start going back in the up direction?
I mean, they're not too far off from those wild card years. I mean, 2015, they were one of the best teams in baseball. They just hit it bad. They pulled a draw.
They were in a wild card game a couple of years in a row.
The one they won the first year in 2013 against the Reds. And
I
they made it to 2 years after that. Like I said, in 2015 they had 98, but they just
I remember in 2014
stuff happens.
they just couldn't get past young Jake Arrieta and the Cubs in that one wild card game. That was a tough game.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's the unfortunate part of sports, but you got to do it before you get better. I mean, you have to be bad before you know the reward's going to come if you're bad. If you play it right and you bring guys up and you do what you have to do. The guys, you're gonna have your time's gonna come.
right, you just have to put in the work, and eventually the product will eventually show up on the field. So let's move it on to the next topic here. Matt, what do you got for us?
Let's go on get the NFL. I don't have too much. I know, Mike, you got a couple of things, but the big thing was the Ravens are going to move on from Pro Bowl safety Earl Thomas.
Yeah,
One of the best safeties in football.
Yeah, part of the whole Legion of Boom. After throwing a punch at teammate, what was his name? Chuck Clark.
Chuck Clark, a source told ESPN's Adam Schefter that he punched him during Friday's practice.
Yeah.
Thomas played the last 15 years.
In Seattle, right?
No, he played just last year in Baltimore. He had 49 total tackles, 2 interceptions, and 2 sacks. And right now they're saying the Cowboys are the leading candidate to sign the free agent, but the Texans and the 49ers are also interested in him.
And so I believe I heard a few things about the Browns, too. They
Browns.
weren't interested in that, too.
And
Granted, I feel like Cleveland just gets a lot of trade rumors every time there's up on the market. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, Cleveland, they have a really large
especially
salary
after
cap.
the news of Grant Delpit today getting injured.
Ooh,
Yeah.
There you go. Nice
I mean,
tie in there.
The age definitely shows on Earl Thomas, but he can still show that he's a top what is he, a safety?
Safety, yeah.
Safety in this league, as is Richard Sherman, still out there playing, who is a part of that Legion of Boom.
Right.
It's
One
still
interesting thing you mentioned with the age, though, because I don't think a team like the Browns would really be that concerned, especially with all the young guys. If they were to even go with a 1 year, I think they have around $10-15 million in salary cap available this season, especially with player opt-outs. Their teams were granted certain amounts more. So I think Browns are first or second in salary cap, so they have the money to sign a guy like Earl Thomas, who I believe is still going to make $5 million from the Ravens this season. And how sweet would that be if the Browns get one of the Ravens' best players? I'm just saying, I'd like to see that'd be kind of cool.
It's not a bad thing. You would definitely benefit from
Right.
it.
Especially with the injury to Grant Delpit.
Right.
And then you bring in a guy like that to go kind of mentor a lot of the young guys like, what's his name? Greedy Williams and then Denzel Ward. Both of those guys would benefit tremendously.
It's a young talented or secondary.
Right. It's
Browns
very
have.
young secondary, and they would benefit tremendously from having a guy like that come in and maybe he doesn't have the best season, but just showing how to read offenses and read routes and see things at the NFL level. Because a lot of those guys, especially with the Browns' whole team and all the coordinators, a lot of them are a lot of young guys, a lot of coordinators in the Browns organization. So to have an older guy like that, established guy that's seen a lot of things and his very long storied career in the NFL could definitely help out a team like that.
Right. I mean, you're making your case for the Browns, but looking at the
Earl Thomas, if you're listening to our show, Browns it up. Yeah, get in the orange and brown, best colors in football.
But just looking at the 3 teams I mentioned, I mean, Cowboys are obviously the leading candidate because they wanted to get him last year when he was a free agent before he signed in Baltimore. So you got the Cowboys and the Texans and the Niners. Looking at those teams, or as we were talking about the Browns, who do you guys think Who do you guys think is or should be the leading candidate? Who do you think he should sign with and would make a good fit for?
Well, I think any team he goes to will be a great fit, but with the Cowboys, it would be interesting to see because that defense has gotten a lot bigger and better in the past few weeks alone. But I believe something came out earlier today. I'm not 100% sure on this. The Cowboys said that they actually weren't that interested in getting him. I think they said they were good with the defense they had, and they weren't looking to acquire anybody new. Granted, that may have come before Earl Thomas was announced that he was released from his contract, but that's kind of interesting to just even if that comes before, would they still be looking into getting a guy like that, even after they say, maybe I don't think we really want to look into
this
it.
out there. But how about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? They already got a kind of
They've already been signing everybody this offseason.
They have been signing everybody.
So
here's an even crazier one for you.
Yeah.
How about the Arizona Cardinals? They just signed Dre Kirkpatrick.
Yeah.
We know they have a lot of money because they have the young guys.
Yeah.
The defense is really good. They have Chandler Jones.
Who's I think is one of the most underrated.
Probably
players.
top 3 defensive linemen in all of football.
Right.
You sent me a stat the other day about him, just how dominant he's been and how underrated he has been in that time period. And I just think the Arizona Cardinals might actually be a really good fit, especially with how interesting the offense for them has become. Because we're going to see something new probably here in the next year or so of how they operate, and just compared to the rest of the league, they're gonna look a lot more like a college spread offense. And with that being in the NBA,
with Cliff Kingsbury at the helm,
right, with Cliff Kingsbury there. And I just think if they want to use that style of offense, especially with Kyler Murray being a Big 12 guy who's known for offensive firepower, they're going to need a defense that can keep up with it. And a guy like Chandler Jones, who had 19 sacks last season, the only other 2 guys that had 19-plus sacks were Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack.
Since your names aren't Aaron Donald or Khalil Mack, nobody cares. So.
Well, I think part of that is because look at the team he's on.
Yeah.
I mean, the Arizona Cardinals, they really haven't made headlines at all. They've just recently gotten some hype because people think Kyler Murray might be the real deal. Jury's still out on that. I mean, we just saw what happened with Lamar Jackson. I know you don't like him, Matt, but he has turned out to be the real deal. He won the MVP. If he can win it in the Super Bowl and playoffs,
that's the only thing they got to get together is just win the playoff games. The last 2 years they've been in it, they got knocked out in the first round.
Exactly. So if we see Kyler Murray turn into someone like that, or even he's gotten more comparisons to Russell Wilson. If we see him have a career like that, where a very offensively powerful, he has to have the defense to, complement that. And I think a pickup like this would be a great one for them.
No, I can see the Cardinals being a good fit. I mean, not so much defensively right now, but you saw what they did over the offseason. Acquiring DeAndre Hopkins is probably one of the best or more surprising moves of the offseason. So they got a good thing going there. I mean, their offense, like you said, it's probably going to look more of a college-based offense. And putting a guy like Earl Thomas in the secondary for them, that would, pull things together for them.
Right, 100%.
And speaking of Russell Wilson, you just said he's 57-0 when leading by 4 points or more at halftime.
Right, yeah, Russell Wilson has been very
impressive
impressive in his time that he's played here in the NFL.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the more clutch quarterbacks in the NFL.
I think he's also becoming one of the more underrated quarterbacks.
Oh,
like if we go back a few years ago, nobody would be saying that. Everyone's like, oh, clearly in the next 3 years, this guy's going to be the future of the league. And he keeps producing at the same level, but people are like, well, he's not as flashy as he was. Kind of like Aaron Rodgers, who's still putting up a lot of numbers, but he's not as flashy as he was when he was younger because, he's getting older.
Or even Cam Newton.
Right, Cam Newton, who really hasn't been terrible, but has just lost the hype.
He's had injury problems, too.
Yeah. That 2015 Cam Newton, man.
If you can get back to that or even, somewhere near that in New England, I don't know how good they're going to be compared to how they were with Tom Brady, but they're going to probably pick up.
I truly believe this. You guys can roast me as much as you want, but I truly believe that
we'll probably roast you.
Yeah.
That Tom Brady needs Bill Belichick more than Bill Belichick needs Tom Brady. I think Bill Belichick is a great coach. I think he can find ways to win. I mean, he's out looking at guys from small colleges, and he brings them in and makes them star players.
No, I definitely agree with that case.
Yeah, I think
I think Billy B will do just fine this season.
Yeah, I think Believe me, I really want the Buffalo Bills to win this division. They're favorites to win this division, but don't put the Patriots out just yet.
I don't think you can ever count the Patriots out.
No,
Right?
Just with the way Billy B is.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw a team like the Steelers last season without their starting quarterback still not have a losing season.
Let's just remember, I mean, if it wasn't for Bill Belichick, I don't know if Tom Brady would have ever been found.
I mean, it's very possible he would never have gotten the opportunity. I see what you're saying
so.
there.
And especially with the injury of Drew Bledsoe, you might not have gotten an opportunity.
Exactly. I mean, Tom Brady's career just so happened to kind of fit together. He was at the right place at the right time in the right system, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of other quarterbacks that just may have never gotten that opportunity.
No.
I mean, there's so many guys that we may have just missed an entire career on because they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, or they got taken to a bad team like the Browns or the Redskins at the wrong time, or formerly known as Redskins. Sorry, my apologies.
The Washington
football team.
At the moment.
At the moment, yes. We're still waiting on to see any new name teams.
But looking at both New England and Tampa, I mean, you're going to see both teams, like, a lot of adjustments. I mean, you got Tom Brady going down there and Gronkowski going down there. Yep. They had a good draft. They signed a lot of free agents. I mean, you're going to have to see Tom Brady. It's not so much. It's just a change of scenery for him. He's going down to a different team. He's been with the same team for 20 years. He's going down to a place with a lot of sunshine. So he's going to be rejuvenized.
Yeah.
Also,
a team that hasn't been in the Super Bowl since Tom Brady.
Not even relevant since then.
Yeah.
Right.
2001. That's the year Brady came in, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the last time they were there, and they won that Super Bowl with John Gruden.
One thing to keep in mind, though, as we're talking about this whole situation, is Tom Brady's old.
Yeah, he's old.
We saw him have a good season last year, but I wouldn't be entirely surprised if he just has a bad season.
I wouldn't be shocked, right?
He has to show age at some point.
Yeah.
We keep saying it with LeBron, but he's actually not that old.
No.
When we think about the other guys that are playing, like Udonis Haslem for the Miami Heat. LeBron, I think, is still 6 years younger than that guy, and LeBron is in peak physical condition, spending millions on his body every year. Same thing Tom Brady is doing. Tom Brady has his own TB12 program to keep himself in shape. I'm not 100% sure, but I think the Buccaneers have joined in with TB12, the training company, to help out with other players. Because there was issues up in New England last season or the seasons before with Tom Brady's specialized training program that Billy B and the staff up there didn't like. So, but sooner rather than later, Tom Brady is going to show signs of aging. I don't know if that'll be this season. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But we know it's going to happen at some point. And when we do, there's going to be a lot of hate at first.
Yeah.
But then he'll retire, and we'll all remember. Oh, yeah. I mean, he was really stinking good when he played.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to just from carrying it from one goat of a sport to another. Michael Jordan. Played for the Bulls for a long time. Great, amazing. Then he went to the Wizards, and they were a terrible team. He put up pretty good numbers, not by his standards.
Numbers,
No.
but
He put up good numbers for the average player, but not Jordan numbers.
He put butts in the seats, definitely.
Right. That's what Tom Brady's going to do for Tampa, even though they can't put that many butts in the seats due to the COVID situation this year. But, we'll see what happens. I'm interested to see what happens down there.
They also just signed veteran running back LaShawn McCoy.
Right, that's a good pickup too.
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely have what it takes to be what they want to be, or or at least what Brady was in New England. That's what they're banking on.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not going to be surprising if he just comes out and he's not as good as we've seen him to be. But until it happens, it's the same thing with LeBron. Until we see him fading off, you can't write him off.
Right. No.
Same thing with Tom Brady. You just can't write him off till you see him fade off.
Right, and we keep seeing flashes of oh man, I think this guy's finally starting to show age. Then the next game, like in LeBron's case, he'll come out and put up 45 points, get the triple-double.
Yeah.
Then the guy like Tom Brady's case, he'll come out and throw 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, 350 yards, and win.
We'll get to basketball in a little bit, but people were writing off LeBron last year when the Lakers didn't make the playoffs.
Right, LeBron just had his first injury in forever. He's done.
Yeah.
I mean, LeBron's got written off a lot on his career. Not to move away from football.
I have some stuff here that clearly proves that he's not off his game just yet.
Like I said, until I see it significantly happen, you can't just expect it to happen until it does happen.
All right, before we move on to the NBA here, make sure to check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, Spotify.
Yeah.
All the podcasting sites. Make sure you check us out. It helps us, which in the long term helps you because you get more of us, which clearly if you're watching this long, you love us. You love listening to it. You love our opinions. So keep checking it out. Casual Sports Report, Casual Sports Podcast. Check out all the other shows we got going on. We just had, coming out on Thursday, we'll have another episode of Kicking It Back with Matt. This time talking about the downfall of the Cardiac Kids and the AFC Conference Championship losses to the Broncos. So make sure to tune into that. And now let's get started on the NBA at the 50-minute mark.
And we threw in our hashtags and all that just in case you want to not hear us talk about NBA because you were sick of it last week. But if you truly love our show, you'll keep listening to us and you will listen to us talk about the NBA. So let's get on into the NBA.
If you want to interact with us on Twitter, use hashtag CSR2020. That's kind of been our trademark through the whole year. So if you want to talk to us, you can do it that way. It's super easy. We're checking that all the time. So let's get on to the NBA.
Yeah,
Alec, what you got? I like this NBA. You've been watching
So before we get into playoffs, congratulations to Nick Nurse. He's been officially named head coach of the year. You know, we made our picks last week. I think we all picked Billy Donovan of the Thunder.
Yeah.
I believe so,
But congratulations to Nick Nurse. He is really
definitely
he's really kept this program where they were last year with the Raptors. I mean, last season they finished second seed to the Bucks as well. This season, I think they came back even stronger. We talked a lot about their stats last week, so we won't go into it. You can go check out that podcast if you want to get all those numbers because we put them all out there. We don't want to repeat them all and go for another 2.5 hours on this show. But now on to the playoffs. This was the first time both number one seeds lost their opening game in the playoffs since the 2002-2003 season. It was the Spurs and the Pistons. This year it was the Lakers and the Bucks. The Bucks lost the first game to the Magic. The Lakers lost the first game to the Trailblazers. But keep in mind, last time this happened, one of those teams, the San Antonio Spurs, went on to win the NBA title. Take that as you will. I think that's a pretty good sign for either the Bucks or the Lakers, both teams that we think can probably go to the NBA playoffs.
And Orlando won that first game, and that's all they want. As they fell today, and then now are losing the series 3-1. So.
Oh wow! So they all okay.
In a familiar territory for Orlando, they beat Toronto last year in Game 1. So I mean, it being lower seeds, they have a tendency the last 2 years of winning Game 1. I mean, not winning the series, but at least getting people a little nervous about what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so it's been interesting to see how the lower seeds have done, especially because they came in playing a lot harder than a lot of the top seeds. Like the one seeds really didn't have to play very hard or really give it their all at the start to get their spot. They were good. They kind of just let it go at that point. But then you see teams like the Blazers that basically had to win every single game that they went in there and did. So they were playing already at that. Every game for them has been a playoff game. So they're going to this game like this is their NBA Finals.
And that's something we talked about last week. We thought going in some of these lower seeds would make it competitive because you didn't know how. I mean, the ramp up was kind of short with all the play-in games, but you didn't know how like teams were going to react. Like the Lakers, like they knew they were going to be the number one seed. Right. So you had teams like fighting for the lower seeds, and they've been playing through all this, so you didn't know how the lower seeds were going to react to this. We picked every series to be tight, so we thought they were all going to be tight series.
Exactly. All right, so moving on to the first series, we have one of the most interesting series we've seen so far, the Lakers and the Trailblazers. Yep. Currently, the Lakers are leading 2-1. Just for some background information from last week, Mike had picked the Lakers to win in 6. Matt had the Lakers in 7, and I had the Lakers in 5. At the moment, it's looking like mine's might be the closest. I think, Matt, you're a little bit off on this one so far.
But the Blazers hope to tie this game tonight. They just gotta, they gotta play the way they did in that first game. They can't fall off like they had the past couple of games.
I think the first game was the Lakers' fault. I give credit to the Blazers all you want, but the Blazers only scored 100 points. They won 100-93. Yeah. That's pretty good defense when we're talking about the numbers we're putting up in the NBA these days. Keeping a team to only 100 points, really good. That just means the Blazers had better defense. So in that game, LeBron James had 23 points, 17 rebounds, 16 assists. Anthony Davis had 28 points. In that game, LeBron James became the first person to record 20-plus points, 15-plus rebounds, 15-plus assists in a playoff game. First time that's happened. But to contradict that,
Damian Lillard went off for 34 points,
Yeah.
and McCollum had 21
Yeah.
points.
The only hope I gotta say is for this Blazers team is Dame. Carmelo's been getting it done. Carmelo's been. I mean, he's been
Carmelo's
playing all right.
Carmelo's third quarter performance
That
in
was-
Game 3 was,
And that was
out of
pretty-
this world. He put up 13 points, and they were all right after another. He just
And-
went down the court, put it up at the elbow,
That
and
was
put him in.
That
It
was a
beautiful to
close
watch.
game. I think Blazers only lost by what?
It was 8 points. It was
Yeah.
116 to 108. But then if we go to Game 2, which I think is probably the most interesting in the series, because LeBron James only had 10 points, and they still won by 23.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, it was
Lakers
pretty
won
convincing.
111 to 88. So LeBron had 10 points. Anthony Davis had 31. So that's where most of their points came from. But their defense was amazing in that game. They held the Blazers' leading scorer was Damian Lillard. He only had 18 points. McCollum was their second. He only had 13 points. So they dominated them defensively. Then we move on to the next game in Game 3, where we saw LeBron finally throw the hammer down, put on his crown, and he stopped being pass first and started being him first. He was getting through no matter who was guarding him. It was beautiful to watch. He finished with 38 points. Anthony Davis still finished with 29. Anthony Davis has finally found his shot. It's beautiful to see.
Yeah.
You know, he kept trying to shoot threes. It kept breaking. He was going up and down every game. Last night, he found where the shot was hidden. It's right there at the top of the elbow, right in between the elbow and the three-point line. He kept pulling them up from there yesterday. They kept sinking in. If AD continues to hit the shot, he continues to remember to go there, it's over for the Blazers, and I will be right in 5.
And it's with LeBron and AD continue to play the way that you were just talking about, it's gonna be hard for any team to stop them.
Exactly. If that team is on defensively, no one is going to be able to touch them just because of how
Yeah.
good they are defensively when they're on. Because they have enough firepower on offense to get 110, so all they have to do is hold their opponent to 90, which in today's NBA is a lot harder than it sounds.
Right.
Just because of three-pointers, free throws. Speaking of free throws, the Lakers, one of their biggest reasons for their win last night, they had 43 free throw attempts compared to the Blazers' 19. However, the Lakers only made 28 of those, while the Blazers made 18 of their 19. So on one side of this, we look at why the Blazers didn't have nearly as many, and they were shooting basically 99% from the line. But then we look at the Lakers, who were shooting about 75% from the line, and they had double the amount. So they going forward, if they get past the series, still they're gonna have to fix this fast.
Right. I mean, free throw shooting is a key part of the game.
Oh,
I mean, it's a difference maker.
Free throws can win or lose a game.
That's Damian Lillard even said after the game. It was like in Game 2, both teams were really physical. They just happened to be more physical than us in Game 2. So then we came out in Game 3. We wanted to be the more physical team, and that led to us drawing a lot more fouls. So he admitted this wasn't completely the refs just handing the Lakers the game like a lot of people on Twitter would have you believe. Dame was coming out saying, yeah, we were fouling because we were trying to play more aggressive. We were trying to get into their heads like they were getting into ours. And it almost worked for them. It just, the Lakers ended up hitting shots when it counted, and the Blazers didn't. It was as simple as that.
Right, and that's a strategy teams should use more when you're playing a team that is the favorite over you. I mean, you have to get more physical with them. You have to show them that you're not messing around. That you're going to hang around with them. It's going to be a tough series.
Because there's a reason that team is better. There's a reason that team is the 1 seed compared to you being the 8. And in that game, just a few more records that the King broke last night. LeBron James has now passed Klay Thompson for third all-time in three-pointers made in the NBA playoffs. LeBron James has also passed Tim Duncan for second most playoff wins. He's now 3 wins behind the first place Derek Fisher with 161.
Yep.
And big news for the Lakers, Rajon Rondo has been activated.
Yes.
He is back a week earlier than he was expected to. Rondo's back with the Lakers. If you want to look at that statistically during the regular season, the Lakers were, I believe, +8 statistically, better than they were when he was off the floor.
I mean,
he's a huge impact for that team, and
big
we know
news.
how good playoff Rondo is.
Playoff Rondo, yeah, going back to the days of the
yes.
Pelicans.
Yeah. And Boston.
Yeah.
Uh,
What do you got, man?
Yep. And you said with LeBron making the threes in the playoffs, he just passed Klay Thompson, and he's only 10 away from Ray Allen, who has 385. LeBron
Right,
has
he'll probably
370.
pass Ray Allen at some point. That's just
Stephen
Ray Allen's
Curry,
retired.
just nobody. I mean, nobody's even close.
Right, he's still got ways to go. Too.
I mean, we're going to make it to next
Klay-
postseason, and Klay Thompson is going to pass LeBron once again.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Just because LeBron's
They're on a
not
1 year
three-point-
break, just like LeBron was last
The only
year.
reason LeBron is, number 3 on that list is because he's been playing for so long, and he
Yeah.
has a semi-consistent three-point shot.
Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry are just good.
Right, 2 of the best three-point
Yeah.
shooters we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And looking at that statistically, it's hard to argue we've seen
Yeah.
much better. And like most guys will say, Kyle Korver definitely probably has a better three-point career, mainly because he's
Yeah.
done it for so long, so consistently.
I mean,
But
he's had one of the
he
best
hasn't put
shooting
up the numbers in the
percentages.
playoffs, though.
Yeah.
That-
I mean,
that-
shooting percentage wise, he's one of the best,
Speaking
not just in the playoffs, but in the regular season,
Yeah.
too.
Speaking of records broken, how about Luka Doncic?
we'll talk about that
We're
once
gonna
we
get
get
to
down
that?
to the Mavs Clippers
Okay.
matchup. Next matchup, we're going to talk about Rockets versus the Thunder. This is currently the game we have on. For those of you wondering, it's currently 4:30 here. Game is 20-21 with 5 minutes left in the first quarter.
OKC is winning.
With a 1 point lead, yep.
So just for what we were saying last week, Mike, you took the Rockets in 6. Matt took the Rockets in 5. I took the Rockets in 4. I'm out on this one. I was wrong there.
I'm actually.
You're still looking good, man.
I'm starting. Yeah, but I'm starting. OKC actually might pull this one out. They're coming to play.
This is one of those
Right?
series that we
Yeah,
talked
we
about
were-
going either way.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that is true. But
Yeah, I'm gonna go through the games here for you
Yeah.
guys, just because I don't think it's as close as the 2-1 record would seem.
yeah.
In Game 1, it was 123-108 to the Rockets. James Harden had 37 points. Jeff Green had 22. He's been a great find for them. Then this is the Thunder's biggest issue. They're not having consistent scorers. Because their top scorer was Delino Gallinari. He had 29 points. Chris Paul had 20. Then we move on to Game 2. It was 111-98 for the Rockets. Harden had 21 points, but 7 of the 8 players who played had double digits. So they only had to play 8 guys, and 7 of them scored double digits, and they won by 13 over the Thunder. In that game, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, young guy, 31 points, and then Gallinari had 17. So once again, we see a completely different leading scorer for the team. Then we move on to Game 3. It was 119-107 to the Thunder. James Harden put up 38 points. Jeff Green once again had 22 points.
Jeff Green. Man.
This was the first time we actually saw the Thunder put on a fantastic shooting performance. In that game, Dennis Schroeder had 29, Chris Paul had 26, Gallinari had 20, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 23. So it took 4 guys scoring 20 points or more just to beat the Rockets because their defense has been so poor and they can't defend the Rockets, which is, I think, what a lot of people have noticed throughout the season is, man, they're playing this small ball, but no one can still defend them. And I've been thinking about this more and more and more. Small ball's working to perfection. We're now seeing other teams in the playoffs start using this to help spread the floor and create these wide open driving lanes for players. And I think this is exactly how James Harden is getting so many points in shots. There's no center that can defend going from the 3-point line, then running back into the paint to rotate.
Right.
Especially against a guy like James Harden, who in just a matter of steps and seconds is at the hoop and scoring. How many centers can we really say can close out that quickly or close in that quickly? I should say.
him. I mean, with the shooters around him too, they have to step out and contest these guys.
Right, and we've started to see in the past few days with a lot of I've noticed it more and more. I should say, a lot of these teams have been transitioned to small ball when they're losing in games because they're trying to spread out the floor even more. Because it's also forcing the opposite team to make an adjustment. Most of the time, that involves taking out their big man. When a team is forced to take out their big man, they're losing a lot of their rebounds. They're also losing most of their shot blocking abilities and their defensive anchor. Right. A lot of times, the center's really mostly responsible for just pointing things out because he's standing back there right next to the paint and he can tell a player you have a screen coming in behind you. He's got the best angle on the entire court. Once you're taking out the center and moving everybody out to the 3-point line, you're taking away the ability to communicate as well as you could have.
And the defense goes down. So you're losing your presence. I mean, you're losing your for the defense, you're losing your floor general, as we talked about. He sees everything.
Right.
I mean, you're losing your presence down low.
Right, and then if you do drive to the lane and somebody else rotates in to try and stop you, well, now there's a wide open guy on the 3-point line, and a lot of teams we know now have an entire lineup of 3-point shooters that they will just throw the ball out to, and then we see rotations, especially with the Toronto Raptors, one of the best passing teams in basketball. The ball will just continuously flow until that shot is open, and they just throw it up, and it goes in most of the time.
Right.
It's very interesting to see how this team continues to work at this and how small ball works if they get past this series and move on to a team like the Lakers, the Clippers, or potentially the Mavericks,
or
Utah.
I mean, just talking about the small ball. I mean, like you said, I mean, we people had doubts whether it was going to work or not, but we're seeing.
I think we were all one of them that were like, I was.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to work because I mean, like I said, not having that presence on, as I talked about, on defense. I mean, you're not having your floor general. So I mean, I didn't know how that was going to work, but I mean,
I think part of us being like, I don't think that'll work. I think that's more of the basketball traditionalist inside of all our minds. You know, we were all raised watching a center dominate basketball. I mean, especially we had Shaq. We grew up with Tim Duncan, LaMarcus Aldridge, Yao Ming. Dwight Howard was even awesome at the time. Andre Drummond in recent years, DeAndre Jordan. We've always had this big guy anchoring a team, whether he's putting up 20 points a game didn't really seem to matter. It was, this guy's one of the best defensive players in the game, and we still have that with a guy like Rudy Gobert. And Nikola Jokic is finally kind of becoming a mix between defensive player and offensive guru.
I mean, it's definitely probably going to see a trend that we're going to see now. I mean, like I said, we didn't know how it was going to work out, so it's going to lean more towards this because everybody had their doubts at first. Now that you're seeing it work,
right. We're going to see less 7-footers making as much of an impact in the league if they can't shoot.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of one of the downfalls of a guy like Taco Fall, who's 7'5", fan favorite, and he's not getting as much playing time because, frankly, he can't shoot unless he's next to the hoop. Granted, when he's next to the hoop, he's one of the greatest, shooters in the game because of his height. I mean, if you go back to college and his time at UCF, he set the record for best field goal percentage in college basketball history because he could just sit up next to the hoop and not have any issues. That's right. But let's move on to the next series here. We had the Jazz and the Nuggets. Yeah. Mike, you took the Nugs in 6. Matt, you took the Jazz in 6. Yeah. Probably the best looking pick out of all of us. And I took the Nuggets in 5. Throw me out the window again. I messed that one up.
I told you this Jazz team is coming
I didn't think they had the stuff to do it. I think most of that came from me thinking Mike Conley was going to miss more of it than he ended up doing.
Matt, looking at it now, like Alex talked about, your prediction's looking the best.
Yeah, right. And then the Nuggets are winning 3-1 right now.
They play tomorrow at 6:30.
Right, and they've won three straight against the Nuggets. I mean, the Nuggets won the one game that went to overtime. So you could almost say they got to overtime. The Jazz were just worn out. They couldn't keep up anymore. Nuggets took advantage. Because in that game, the Jazz one of their players put up a phenomenal performance. I believe was third all-time in the NBA playoff points in a game. Donovan Mitchell had 57 points. Yep. Then off the bench, they had 2 other guys start balling out too. Yeah. Jordan Clarkson had 18, former Cavalier. Then Joe Ingles had 19. Then on the other side of the team, the Nuggets, they got a guy coming up here starting to put up some numbers. Jamal Murray had 36 points, and then Jokic had 29. That was the one game that the Nuggets won. And Donovan Mitchell put up 57. Hard to imagine putting up 57 and losing a game. Yeah. Then, out there in the next game, 124-105 to the Jazz. Donovan Mitchell had 30. Jordan Clarkson had 26 points. And then on the opposite side of the floor, we talked about this guy before their series started. Michael Porter Jr., he put up 28. And the Joker also put up 28. Then we move on to Game 3, the most lopsided victory we've seen this playoffs. 87-124. Mike Conley for the Jazz had 27. Gobert had 24. But then on the opposite side of the floor, the Denver Nuggets, Jamal Murray put up 50 points. Oh, sorry, no. That's the wrong game. I'm an idiot. Jokic put up 15 points. Jamal Murray only put up 12 in that game. My apologies. I was looking ahead to Game 4. Which gave us one of the most spectacular performances in NBA history, not just playoffs. in Game 4, 129 to 127 to the Jazz. Donovan Mitchell put up 51 points. It was he's only the third player to have multiple 50-point games in a playoff series. Then Mike Conley had 26. Jordan Clarkson then had 24. But then we go to the Nuggets.
Jamal Murray.
It was the first time in playoff history that two opposing players each scored 50 points in a postseason game, in only the sixth time that has ever happened in NBA history. Jamal Murray put up 50 points, and then Jokic put up 29.
I mean,
That's
yeah,
It's a crazy series so far.
that was scoring for both teams.
a lot of scoring, and it may be lopsided. It's 3-1 right now. Obviously, the Game 4 was really close. It was only 2 points. Then Game 1 went to overtime. So we could be looking at a series that could have already been a sweep, or we could be looking at a series that would have been 2-2, depending on how these games gone once they got down to the end. Obviously, you got two guys scoring 50 points in a game. You're hoping one of them makes that final shot. Didn't end up working out for the Nuggets in that game, but it worked out for the Jazz.
Yeah, I mean, balanced scoring, a lot of scoring. I mean, high-scoring games. One game was a blowout. Which game was that game?
That was Game 3, 87
Game
to
3.
124.
So you're seeing all over the place. Like I said, definitely seeing high scoring. The scores in these games are high, which is how the NBA is now. I mean, you see all these teams scoring a lot of points.
Right, and part of that is teams are focusing more on offense than defense, I think.
Right.
A team is more concerned, and I think the NBA is more concerned with just entertainment value. The more points you're scoring, the more entertainment there is.
There is, yeah.
So if a guy's going to the free throw line 43 times a game, it's kind of boring. You lose the flow of the game. There's, it keeps getting paused, and you're like, well, I mean, that was cool for a second there, but now we're at the free throw line again.
Yeah.
So I think it's just the league turning more into an offensive-based league. We're going to continue to see these point amounts rise.
Right. So what we got moving to the next series?
Moving to the next series, my favorite series right now. The one I'm rooting for the underdog, the biggest. We have the Clippers versus the Mavericks. The series is tied 2-2.
Yes.
Mike, you took the Clippers in 5. That's looking like a bad
Yeah,
decision.
it is.
It's over now for
Who
you.
did I take?
Matt, you took the Clippers in 5 as well.
Ah!
You're out of here. You know who's I'm the
Yeah.
only one that's still in it. I took the Clippers in 6.
I wanted to take the Mavericks.
You did say, I listened back to the clips this
Yeah.
morning, you said, we all pretty much said, we wouldn't be surprised to see the Mavericks take this in 7.
Yeah, I mean, it's tied now. You still can't. I wouldn't be
Right,
surprised.
'cause we had mentioned that
three-game series now.
we had mentioned their offense efficiency rating was number 1 all time in NBA history. So we had all agreed if the Mavs shooting is on, that they could take down the Clippers. Just because the Clippers obviously can put up points, but they're more of a defensive team. They're defensive minded, and we saw that a little bit throughout some of their games. They ended up being higher scoring, which played to the Mavs' favor, which is why it's 2-2 at the moment. In Game 1, 118-110 the Clips. Luka Doncic had 42 points. Kristaps Porzingis had 14. I'm going to read just what happened with the Kristaps Porzingis double technicals in the game that got him ejected.
Tell us about that.
I'm going to talk about those. Then we're going to talk about that a little more, what we thought on that game. Most people have heard about that if they've been following sports. But here we go. Kristaps Porzingis was ejected following 2 technicals. Both were weak fouls. This came from an ESPN article, by the way. This is not my own writing. And this blew up Twitter. Porzingis received his first technical after protesting a foul call against him with 6:02 remaining in the second quarter. Replays confirmed that Porzingis clearly blocked Paul George's layup attempt, but he was called for the foul and assessed a technical after reacting by punching the air and shouting a few words. The referees then came out and said afterwards that anytime a player throws a punch in the air like that, it's an automatic technical. Then we got down to the third quarter, I believe it was, and then the referees gave both Porzingis and Clippers forward Marcus Morris Sr. double technicals following a confrontation that began when Morris wrapped his arms around Luka, said a few choice words. Then Porzingis confronted Morris, and they were separated after Morris shoved Porzingis. Porzingis was issued, I believe it was a double technical foul on both. It was Porzingis' second. He gets thrown out of the game. Afterwards, this was Porzingis' official word, quoted, "I saw him getting into Luka's face, and I didn't like that. That's why I reacted. That's a smart thing to do from their part. I just got to be smarter and control my emotions next time." So he came out and said, you know what, I did the wrong thing. I should have been under more control. And then referee of the game, Kane Fitzgerald, has refereed, I think it was over 500 games. He said the reason Porzingis got the technical because it was pretty weak. It was kind of dumb. Which is why it blew up Twitter, because of how dumb it was. He said the second technical foul was for being an escalator to the altercation, which was confirmed via replay. So that second technical there really impacted how the game was going for the Mavericks, because they were right in there. Then he got taken out of the game. The Clippers went on a run. The Mavericks tried to pull it back, but they only got it within 8. So the Clippers won that game. Kawhi had 29 points. Paul George had 27. It was a great game for them. Then we move on to game 2. 127-114 to the Mavericks. Finally, we saw, both of the Mavericks players get the full game in.
Yeah.
But Paul George 13 finally, what everyone's making fun of him for, playoff P didn't show up to the game. He only had 14 points, while the other, Kawhi, KP, and Luke all had 20 plus. Kawhi had 35, and probably their biggest reason for that loss, Paul George just didn't shoot the ball well. And he's been getting clowned on Twitter all week for it because he's really slumping pretty hard in those games.
This is obviously in the state, but if he plays like that or doesn't pick it up, the series is over for the Clippers.
It is.
Because the Mavs are bringing in
They're
heavy duty. They're gonna.
Then we get to the game 3.
Yeah.
We saw another one of the Mavericks players go out in a close game. This one was 130-122 to the Clippers. Luka Doncic had a 13-point, 10-rebound, 10-assist, triple-double, but he had an ankle injury early in the fourth quarter that took him out of the game. He was unable to return. Then Porzingis had 24, but Kawhi came back and answered with 36 points. Once again, we only saw Paul George get 11 points, so he slumped even harder in this game. Then we go to game 4. Best game of the series so far. 133-135. The Mavs win it in overtime. Luka Doncic, 43 points, 17 rebounds, 13 assists. He did all of that. Kristaps Porzingis did not play the entire game. He was out with a sore right knee, so their second leading scorer was Trey Burke, who had 25. On the other side, Kawhi had 32. Another great performance by him. You can't put any of these losses on him. He's played great so far. But Paul George only had 9 points. Didn't hit double digits. Then Lou Will had 36 points for the Clippers. But Luka's game winner in overtime from 3. Let me just give you the play-by-play in case you haven't seen the clip. The ball was being thrown in. Kawhi was one-on-one with Luka Doncic. He had to switch off with Reggie Jackson because center Maxi Kleber came in. He set the pick. Luka Doncic got by him. Kawhi Leonard gets trapped behind the pick. So Reggie Jackson is forced to switch on to Luka. Luka gets the inbound pass, puts the ball between his legs a few times, rises up from 3. Ball releases from the fingertips. The buzzer sounds. Swish. Beautiful. I lost my mind. I was sitting here and I just exploded. Part of the reason I think my throat's a little bit sore today is because I lost it after that happened. Luka Doncic was one of the greatest finishes of the game we could have asked for. In a 42-point triple-double performance, hitting the game winner in overtime like that at the buzzer. Phenomenal performance. I'm loving watching this.
Good way to cap it off, and there's 2-2 series tie.
Right, you mentioned it with the playoff P, so as he's given himself the nickname. Paul George has been awful besides that game 1 performance. 11 points, 9 points. That's not acceptable for a guy of his caliber who was the MVP runner-up just, 2 years ago? It's kind of like, what happened to this guy? Where was the fall-off? Because he had a pretty good regular season.
Yeah.
But now we're in the playoffs, and it's like, we don't think it's getting to him. He's been here. Why would it get to him this time? Maybe it's the pressure of being a 2-seed in a position he's never been in before.
And he's never been on a team of this caliber, of a team expecting to win a championship.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that may be part of it.
With Indiana for a long time, they never really had the chance. Especially with...
I mean, they took LeBron to Game 7 once or twice.
They
knew they weren't ever going to be able to get past
They made LeBron come back from 24 points to beat them that one time.
Right. But I mean, I think who we have to talk about right now is Luka Doncic.
Yeah,
the superstar.
He's been the story of the whole playoff bubble so far.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. I mean, he is just putting on a show for the Mavericks and for the NBA. Like, could you imagine what these games would sound like if they were in Dallas?
Oh yeah.
Oh my god. The eruption of the crowd from Luka Doncic would be insane.
Level
This
will be off the
guy
charts.
would-
I mean, they haven't been in the playoffs the last couple of years either. So
Right, if this was in Dallas, this guy would have already transcended past superstar. We'd be talking about the next Dirk Nowitzki if they were in Dallas, just because of the way the crowd would be embracing this whole situation at the moment. I feel like Twitter would be blowing up even more than it already has been for this kid.
Yeah.
I love him. He's probably my favorite up-and-coming star. Actually, not up-and-coming. He's probably my
here.
favorite star
He's here. He's
in the
not
NBA.
He's not up and coming.
A lot of guys
He's
keep wanting to
here.
say he's up-and-coming. No,
He's
he's here
here.
now.
yeah, we talked about it last week.
And what's well about the record he just broke? Yes, 70 points in the last 2 games. Just
In 70 points in his first 2
In his
debuts, passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for second most in a 2-game playoff debut.
That's funny. They listed Kareem when they said they passed him. They listed Kareem as Lou Alcindor. I'm like, man.
Wow.
But
But Luka afterwards, when they told him, he's like, you know what? I'm here to win games. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I'm here to score. If my team needs me to score points, I'll go out there and score points, which he did, and they won.
now
He's
they're
here to
tied.
win a game. And that's the right mentality you got to have. That's a mentality a lot of superstars have. It's like the record's great when I look back on it in 40 years, but at the moment, I want that ring. I want that championship.
Yeah.
I want my name in the rafters for all eternity.
Right.
You know. All right, let's switch it over to the East here. We're trying to keep this a little bit shorter. I don't
Yeah.
think that's going to happen. Bucks versus Magic. We talked about it. We were all wrong for this series because we all picked the sweep, as most rational people did.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, last season Magic upset the Raptors in Game 1 in the 2v7 matchup. Raptors went on to win the title. Giannis has been great this whole series, but on the other side of the ball for the Magic, Vucevic has put up 35 points, then 32 points, and then 20 points. So he's been really good for them. We all know he's probably kind of their best player going down there. And then this one's kind of for my cousin. I know he listens to the show. We have a thing with this one guy. Terrence Ross has been balling out. It's an inside joke for the two of us. You'll get it. Terrence Ross, first game, had 18. And then in Game 3, he put up 20. I didn't see what the stats were for Game 4 yet. But not much to talk about here. That's going to be over in the next 2 games, most likely.
Yeah.
I mean, we could still see something. Magic pulled it off in Game 1, winning 122 to 110, so you never know.
We already.
But I think we know.
We do.
And we already had our first sweep in this playoffs.
Yeah, we'll be getting to those
Yeah.
once we go down the list.
Yeah.
We have the Pacers and the Heat on
Yeah.
track for a sweep.
Yeah.
I took the Heat in 6. Matt, you took the Pacers in 7.
Yeah.
They need a miracle right now.
Yeah.
It's not out of it. They could do
Yeah.
it. And then Mike, you took the Heat in 5, which is looking like the best pick at the moment. No one picked a sweep in this one. Stats were pretty much average for both teams. I mean, it's what you're expecting. Game 1, Butler had 28. For the Pacers, Warren and Brogdon each had 22. Then we moved on to the second game. Duncan Robinson putting up a great performance, but then Dragic also had 20 points. We've seen Oladipo kind of slump so far. He's only had 1 game where he was over 20 points. It was Game 2. He had 22.
And that's their key part right there. Oladipo's got to step it up.
And Oladipo he hasn't
He's
been
got
able
to
to.
lead.
Yeah.
He's got to lead the team.
And then we
he's
saw-
not leading right now, so they're losing.
Right. We then saw Game 3, 124-115 to the Heat. Jimmy Butler had 27. Dragic had 24. Adebayo had 22. And Tyler Herro had 20. Brogdon on the Pacers had 34 points, and T.J. Warren at 23. Just not enough to overcome
And
that
there's
Heat
the guy
team.
that's leading his team. Jimmy Butler is leading his team.
Oh, perfectly. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Right, you see it do that throughout his career.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even when he was in Philly for the portion of last
Yeah.
year, he was he was hated there, but he still led in his own special kind of way, which is definitely different than how we see a guy like LeBron lead. LeBron goes in there, he wants to be your best friend. We're seeing more of a Jordan mentality when it comes to Jimmy Butler. He walks in there and he goes, I don't give an F who you are. I'm taking your butt one-on-one on the floor, and if you're not giving me 100%, then you can walk out the door.
Right.
Yeah.
You know? That's Jimmy Butler's mentality so far, and I mean, it's worked for them. They're up 3-0. We're expecting a sweep here in the coming days. I mean, we could still see it. We could see something happen.
What is
Let's
Game
not
4?
count.
Is that tonight?
Tonight or tomorrow, yeah. But I'm not counting the Pacers out just yet, because if Oladipo can put up an Oladipo performance and turn the series right around.
I think that's coming up.
You got the day?
Yeah, It's coming up today, 6:30.
Okay, yeah. So that's the next
6:30.
game on today.
Yeah.
Before we get any further, I just wanna say how nonsense it is that the Bucks Magic Game 4 was not on national television today.
It's not. I thought they all were.
Right.
Or you
It's
think-
the
you would think
NBA.
they
It's
all
the
would be.
NBA playoffs. There's no other sports on that are really touching it, especially with the 1:30 game. It was not on national television.
I mean, you would think with all, they're all in the bubble. You think they'd all be broadcasting. Like you said, it's the NBA playoffs. It's all that's going on in basketball right now.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
also-
It was only broadcasted on the Fox Sports regionals stations, and then NBA TV had the game.
That's it. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I went to go turn it on earlier this day, and I was like, "Where's the game?" So I go on my phone, look on the schedule. I'm like, "This isn't a nationally televised game." I don't think
Like I
I've
said,
been
I
able
don't-
to watch a single Milwaukee Bucks game. Finally today I was like, "Oh sweet, I don't have to work. I don't have a class. I go and turn it on. Psych, you thought next series. Here we go. First sweep we saw the Celtics versus the 76ers.
Yep.
The Sixers were playing
Yep.
without Ben Simmons. He was out due to injury.
Kemba
Funny
Walker.
enough, Matt, I got to give you a fist bump here. We picked the Celtics to sweep.
Yes.
Mike, you picked the Celtics in 5.
That was close.
Yeah,
Kemba
I mean,
Walker,
close, yeah.
32 points
And
yesterday.
he had 32 points in
Yeah.
Game 1 and Game 4.
Yeah.
Then he also had 24 points in Game 3 and 22 points in Game 2. The Celtics are unstoppable. They're not going to be... The 76ers could do much of
Jason-
They
nothing.
very well could
Jason
represent.
Tatum wasn't too far behind him with 28 points.
Right,
yesterday.
yeah. And then in Game 2, Jason Tatum put up 33. Game 1, he put up 28 points as well. But
Yes.
we know the Celtics dominated this matchup. We kind of expected it going into it,
Sixers.
especially once we said that the Ben Simmons was going to be out. Real question is,
Yeah.
what's next for the 76ers? How much longer can they, quote-unquote, trust the process?
And how much longer is Brett Brown going to be there?
Right.
Yeah,
How
they're
much
talking
longer is
on the
Ben
hot
Simmons
seat.
going to be there?
Or Embiid.
Embiid, yeah.
A lot of
Embiid-
questions that got to face.
Embiid yesterday had the highest on the team with 30 points. Besides that, the only one with
Tobias
higher
had
than-
20.
Yeah, and then the rest were like 14 and 12.
And Tobias did have to leave the court at one point with an
Burks.
injury. He took a pretty bad fall to the floor, split his hook, cut his head. He was able to come back later in the
Alec
game, though.
Burks had 13 points off the bench.
Right.
Like that's.
And then
that's
now
more
onto
than
the.
20.
Do you have anything really to mention about this
When
one?
we talk about the Celtics, we talk about a team that they could very well represent the East. In the
Right.
Oh, yeah.
There's 3 very good teams in the East, and
Yeah.
all 3 of them are going to be battling for position here. Obviously, we know Milwaukee's going to have the easiest walk there, because the Celtics have to face on the Raptors, who just now swept the Nets. So we're going to have Celtics,
Two heavyweights going at
Raptors,
it.
2 heavyweights. I think the winner of this is
Oh,
going
man.
to take the Bucks to 7.
Oh my God.
And
What a
I think they
series
could win.
This is gonna be.
This is going to be a series.
Yeah.
Not much to talk about with this. We all picked the Raptors to sweep. They balled out. This team is just so dangerous because it doesn't matter what group is on the floor because they can all score equally well. Any player on this team on any given night can go off for 30 points,
Yeah.
and that's just one of the most dangerous things you can't game plan for a specific person. In Game 1, Van Vliet put up 30. Ibaka put up 22. In Game 2, Van Vliet went off again. He had 24. Norman Powell had 24. In Game 3, Siakam had 26. Van Vliet had 22. In Game 4, Norman Powell had 29 and Ibaka had 27. But then we got into Game 4, and what was most impressive about this entire game is the bench points by the Raptors. The Toronto Raptors put up 100 bench points in Game 4. 100 points off the bench. That is unheard of in the NBA because they won 150 to 122. Woo! That's impressive.
It is.
I mean, how many other teams have the bench to keep up with that, though?
You really don't anymore.
Right.
I mean, but looking at this, like it's going to be a good second round series because this was the half of the bracket that had 2 sweeps, so we're going to see how it goes.
Exactly. And it almost had 3 with the. It could very well have 3 here with the Heat and Pacers. And then it almost had 4 when the Bucks are probably going to they're going to get the gentleman sweep against the Magic. It's just crazy to see the East so dominant at the top, and then we go over to the West, and it's kind of like, I don't know what's going to
you
happen.
kind of thought you'd see this in the East, though. I mean, you thought you'd see a couple of sweeps, like in the West. Most of the series can go either way.
Right.
Whereas in the East, I mean, you knew Toronto had the chance to sweep the Nets as it turned out happening. You knew, as you guys picked with Boston sweeping the Sixers, We thought Milwaukee could
We
sweep.
thought out of all the games, it would have been the Pacers in the Heat to be the closest.
Right.
And that's turning out to be probably another sweep here in the next day or after today. But speaking of sweeps, for the first time in the Toronto Raptors' existence, they swept an opponent. They have never swept another opponent in the playoffs. Even with Kawhi Leonard, Skip Bayless's so-called GOAT. Get that out of here right now.
Yeah.
Get that weak stuff out of here.
Max Kellerman's so-called GOAT too.
Right. You know, we have all the hate on LeBron, but at least he swept somebody before. That,
Toronto.
Multiple times.
Multiple times.
But yeah,
They started to call him Toronto LeBronto.
I mean, this is the golden era of Raptors basketball. I mean, they just won the title last year. I mean, they just had their first sweep, like we just talked about. But we'll see how they continue going to go into the second series against Boston. Like we thought, we're thinking it's going to be a pretty intense battle.
All right, yeah. So now we go on to round two. Both teams swept in the first round, but the Celtics totally had a much more difficult opponent in the 76ers. But that didn't stop the Raptors from completely destroying their opposition. So let's make our picks. Who do we got for the Raptors and Celtics round two?
Man.
This is the series most likely.
I got to go with the champs, but
You're picking Raptors.
because until somebody beats them, you
Raptors
got
and
to
how
go.
many?
I'm going Raptors, and I think it'll probably go 7.
Yeah, I'm gonna say right now, this is going 7 games.
What's
okay?
your pick?
All right. I don't know. Man.
You got to make a pick here, Matt. 3, 2, 1. Give me your pick.
I think Boston Celtics.
And how many
In
games?
7.
I think so.
Whoa,
I
man!
think
So we got a 1-1. I'm the decider here.
Kemba's bringing the fire.
I mean, do we all agree it's going 7? Or do you
Yeah, do
Go
you
ahead and
think
make
it's
your pick,
going 7?
go ahead and make your pick?
All right.
Give me
Here's my thought process. I'm gonna give you my thought process going along here. Celtics definitely have the better starting 5. Their starting
Yes.
5 is probably one of the best in all of the NBA.
Yes.
They have the firepower, but what we don't know is how much will their bench be able to contribute against a team like the Raptors. Then we go over to the Raptor side, who has a good starting 5, but not near the caliber of the Sixers. Of the Celtics. But however, once we go on to the bench, we just saw the Raptors bench is outstanding, and I don't think any bench is going to touch that one. Not after a 100-point performance
Especially
like that.
With Fred VanVleet.
Right. Which is why I'm actually leaning towards the Celtics. Wait, no. I'm taking the Raptors in 6.
6.
In 6. I think the Celtics stumble. I just don't feel like they're going to be able to keep up once their starting unit goes off the floor. They could very well do it if they have the proper game planning in which they always keep 2 or 3 starters on the floor. They could be able to just keep up with it, but I feel like they're going to get tired if it goes to a 6 or 7 game series.
Yeah.
And that's where the Raptors have the advantage with having so much depth. That's why I'm taking the Raptors in 6.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think
That's
it's going to be
fair.
a very tight series.
Yeah.
But I'm going Raptors in 7. I think the Raptors are going to win because
Yeah.
not just saying everything you just talked about, Alec, but I mean, until you beat the champs,
They're
gotta
the
pick 'em.
champs.
You got to pick them.
Tristan Thompson said it the year after LeBron left. The
Yeah.
East still runs through Cleveland. It didn't happen being the case, but that's still the mentality you have to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The East still
The
runs through
reason-
me. I won this. This
Right.
is mine.
The reason I'm taking Boston here, I mean, this is gonna be very, very close. I'm taking them. I'm taking them because of their highs. I mean, Kemba Walker's been on fire. You got.
It's completely reasonable to take the Celtics.
I
I don't
think
think
Brad
anyone's going to
Stevens,
criticize
their
you
coach-
either way.
I think Brad Stevens, their coach, is has a good head on his shoulders, and I think he can coach them to.
All right, we're
win.
just about down to the last few things here.
Yeah.
NBA lottery. We said we talk about it
Yep,
a little bit. First pick ended up going to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Golden State got the number 2. The Hornets got the number 3. The Bulls got the number 4. The Cavs got number 5. The Hawks at 6. The Pistons at 7. The Knicks fell all the way to 8th. Sucks to be a Knicks fan once again. The Wizards got 9. The Suns got 10. Even though they had the phenomenal bump of performance, didn't end up hurting their spot too much. The Spurs got 11th. The Kings got the 12th. The Pelicans at 13. Then the Boston Celtics get the 14th pick. Due to a trade, and they just have stockpiles of picks at this point. That is the NBA draft lottery. Once again, the Cavs get the 5th pick.
Yeah. They still have a shot. Those top players, Obi Toppin, James Wiseman.
Yeah, we'll have to see if it comes down to one of those guys.
Yeah, who's that? Who's that foreign player?
We're talking about a draft class that is in considerable contention to some of the greatest draft classes we've seen all the time. Obviously, we have to see how these guys turn out, but we're comparing it right now to the LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony draft class. Then we go all the way back to, I believe it was Michael Jordan's draft class was insane as well. Yeah. There's a lot of draft classes that it's getting compared to. This is our once-in-a-generation class. Most people are like, oh, man, we just had the amazing class last year with Zion and Ja. But there's a lot of hype surrounding this one, and I think this could be one of the biggest turnarounds for some programs that we see. Not programs, organizations that we see. Especially because if you look at the teams here that are at the bottom, Golden State Warriors are about to get an amazing pick. They're finally going to get their center that they've been going for. Probably going to pick James Wiseman. There's a lot of things surrounding LaMelo Ball, but they don't need another guard. They're going to take a big guy. Most likely it'll probably be Obi Toppin or James Wiseman, and all the speculation has been on James Wiseman to go higher. He didn't play this season in college due to other things that happened. Then we're looking at Chicago Bulls, who have Zach LaVine, who have a lot of young guys that really only need another 2 years to develop at the most. Then we have
Mark Cannon.
Yeah, Laurie Markkanen, Kobe White, he's there. They have a lot of good guys. Then we go to Cavs, who are realistically only one or two pieces away from making the playoffs, not being a contender, but making the playoffs. I talked
about it before our show got canceled at the end of last semester. I mean, and I wouldn't even be surprised if they traded this pick, to be honest.
No.
Just depending on what deal they get offered, I wouldn't be surprised if they traded.
They get a deal, getting a good, decent, even a star player.
I mean, because their biggest need, I think we could all agree, is a small forward. Because I don't necessarily think Osman is a solution in small forward. No. Sorry. But we'll see if they can get one in the draft, and we'll see if they can use that in trading somebody.
I think if they need to pick somebody, if they are lucky enough to get Obi Toppin.
I would love that.
They need a big guy. They need a big guy who's physical. He's been compared a lot to Blake Griffin. I think that's a perfect guy to fit in there, especially with Andre Drummond saying he's going to return to the Cavs. He said he'll re-sign. So if he's, we have kind of a version 2 of the Blake Griffin matchup. Oh, well, there it is. You just said how much longer is Brett Brown going to be with the 76ers. We just found out live here on the show, Brett Brown has been fired from the 76ers. Back to
not really surprised coming.
After 7 seasons, his record was 221 wins and 344 losses.
Wow. So I guess we will no longer be trusting the process for Philly. But, I mean, then we go to the Atlanta Hawks here at 6. They already have Trae Young. They have a very good core that's being built up. Another star. I mean, another young guy here could definitely help them. I mean, then you even get back to the guys at 14, 13, 12, and 11 with the, even the Suns down there at 10. We just saw how well they can perform. One other guy, even back at 10, will be good for them. Spurs, they're going to be they're at the end of the Greg Popovich, they need a guy to help rebuild them. Maybe they'll find a guy here at 11. We've seen a lot of great guys fall down. Kawhi Leonard, I believe, was a later round draft pick. So was Pascal Siakam. Draymond Green, I think, went in the second round. Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think, was 15th in the draft. So there's still talent everywhere in the draft. You just have to be the team to find it.
Right.
All right, so, Matt, I think it's time for Meathead of the Week.
All right, so my Meathead of the Week this week is the whole Brooklyn Nets team thinking that they're going to hire Greg Popovich as their next coach, because that is not going to happen. Greg Popovich is, not just the coach, he's like the GM. I think he's even the assistant GM. He probably owns half that team by now. There's no way, KD, you're going to have to find somebody else. He's not coming to help you. He doesn't just leave teams like that, especially after, if
he was going to continue coaching, he'd stay with the Spurs.
Yeah.
There's no way he's leaving.
He's either going to retire or be with the Spurs.
The Nets are complete clowns for thinking that they're going to be able to sign him.
They're complete meatheads.
All right, and I'm going to finish off the show here. Games of the week, NBA, Clippers versus Mavs, Game 5, Tuesday at 9 p.m. So as this show comes out, this show will be out. Then you can go immediately on over, check out that game. It should be good. Then in Major League Baseball, Twins versus Indians, battle for first of the AL Central on Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night at 7:10 p.m. The Cleveland Indians are only 1.5 games back. Then we move on to the NHL Game of the Week. Bruins versus Lightning, Game 2 on Tuesday at 7 p.m. on NBC Sports. The Bruins are currently leading 1-0.
that's all I have. Thank you all for joining us today. We try to keep this one a little bit shorter. It looks like we just succeeded in that. This will be about how long all shows are in the future. But until next time, I'm Alec Caberna.
I'm Matt Morrison.
I'm Mike Wolfgang.
This has been the Casual Sports Podcast. Make sure to check us out on all of our social media sites. So glad for all of you that made it to the end of this one. This is how our podcasts are probably going to sound and feel from now on. I think we got everything caught back up. And without any further ado, rest in peace one final time to the Mamba. We'll see you next time.